Looking back, it's funny how a few Marvel villains have had stints in the Marvel vs. Capcom games before the heroes best known for fighting them on a regular basis. Shuma-Gorath is probably the best known example of this, having 4 Versus game appearances over 16 years before Doctor Strange finally entered the series with Ultimate Marvel 3. And that's to say nothing of Dormammu, who even got into vanilla Marvel 3 ahead of Strange. And then there's Blackheart, who's had 3 series appearances under his belt, all before the hero he's associated with the most finally got into the series. Ghost Rider is the name of a legacy of hell-based heroes in Marvel Comics, all with the moniker of the Spirit of Vengeance. The first published Ghost Rider comics are probably not the ones you're thinking of, though. Originally, Ghost Rider was a man named Carter Slade, a Western-based hero in an all-white costume who rode on a horse. When Marvel made the decision to make a new Ghost Rider comic in the early 70s, he was renamed to Phantom Rider instead, and reprints of his stories would retroactively incorporate this new name. He'd cross paths with the newer Ghost Rider via some time travel stories though. If you're familiar with DC Comics, it's slightly similar to how Jay Garrick and Alan Scott are utilized in relation to the more modern versions of The Flash and Green Lantern respectively. The most well-known person to take up the Ghost Rider name is Johnny Blaze, who debuted in Marvel's Spotlight issue 5. I touched on this in Shuma's video, but in the 70s, Marvel had 3 anthology comic books they used to tell stories with either new or underused characters. The goal was to ascertain whether a character was popular enough to get their own ongoing book without the need for an upfront monetary investment in publishing a solo book. These anthology books were Marvel Feature, Marvel Premiere, and Marvel Spotlight. Marvel Premiere in particular featured the debut of Ghost Rider, Spider-Woman, and Werewolf by Night, to name a few. Johnny Blaze was just your average motorcycle stuntsman, having been raised in a family of performers. He lived under the care of his father after his mother left and took 2 of his siblings with her, which ended up with Johnny repressing most of his memories of those family members. We'll circle around to that later. His father was Barton Blaze, who specialized in motorcycle stunts. Unfortunately, Barton met a tragic end when a routine stunt went south, leaving Johnny in the care of family friends in the same business, Crash and Mona Simpson. They'd continue to raise him, even getting him into the stunt business, but Crash would fall deathly ill, revealing that he's developed cancer. Desperate not to lose his foster father, Johnny began studying the occult in hopes of summoning Satan himself. The person he ended up summoning, though, was Mephisto. Mephisto makes a deal with Johnny. He would cure Crash of his cancer, but in return Johnny's soul would belong to Mephisto, which Johnny agreed to. Crash was miraculously cured of cancer, then immediately killed attempting a 22-car stunt jump. Shortly thereafter, Johnny would transform into the Ghost Rider for the first time, believing whatever transformation he was going through to be a manifestation of the evil he invoked during his deal. As he'd later find out, he was half right. He was bonded to a demon named Zarathos, who had been gaining more and more control of his actions over his time as Ghost Rider. A bit later, he'd find a way to seal Zarathos away, finally freeing him of the curse of Ghost Rider. He'd settle down with his childhood love Roxanne, the daughter of Crash Simpson, and start a family. A bit later on, a new Ghost Rider would become active, a young man by the name of Danny Ketch. After he and his sister were caught in the crossfire of a gang encounter, he discovers a motorcycle in a junkyard with an eerily glowing gas cap. He touches it with his bloodied hand and is transformed into Ghost Rider. A now retired Johnny Blaze catches wind of this and tracks down Danny, believing Zarathos to have returned. He realizes that whatever spirit Danny is bonded to is entirely different from Zarathos though, instead taking up a mentor/protector role for Danny, teaching him the ins and outs of being a Ghost Rider. It's during this that Johnny and Danny would learn that they're actually brothers, Danny being one of the siblings Johnny's mom, Naomi Kao, took and left with a foster family when they were younger. As it turns out, Naomi's from a family line with ties to mysticism, and specifically has had encounters with Mephisto before, so she ended up splitting up her family to protect them from the forces of hell. After a particularly tragic set of events, including the kidnapping of his kids and the death of Roxanne by one of Danny's enemies, Johnny found he still had a connection to Zarathos, and eventually it had regrown large enough that he began turning into Ghost Rider again. This time around though, he and Zarathos had come to an understanding, fully merging themselves together. They'd get involved in a particularly grueling conflict involving Lucifer, and would even find himself up against the Hulk during World War Hulk. Johnny engages Hulk and loses, but with Zarathos in control while Johnny's unconscious, they stand a chance. However, Zarathos just up and leaves, deciding that their hunt for Lucifer was more important than fighting Hulk. Ghost Rider protects the innocent, and in the eyes of Ghost Rider, the Illuminati, the focus of Hulk's rage, were far from innocent. Ghost Rider usually finds himself involved in conflicts on the mystical side of Marvel, getting tangled up with Mephisto, Lucifer, Blackheart, Doctor Strange, and all other sorts from that corner of the universe. Johnny even usurps Mephisto as the King of Hell for a few years. He's been on some of the heroic teams associated with them as well, such as the short-lived original incarnation of the Champions, and perhaps most notably, the Midnight Suns. Ghost Rider is one of the more powerful characters running, or I guess riding, around in Marvel. On top of the usual super strength, he's functionally immune to injury from anything that isn't a divine being or a powerful hell-based entity. Ghost Rider's existence is fueled by Hellfire, a mystical flame that burns and purifies the souls of mortals and immortals alike, and Ghost Riders can manipulate these flames in a variety of ways. The most well-known ability in Ghost Rider's arsenal by far, however, is the Penance Stare. By looking at someone directly in their eyes, Ghost Rider can inflict all of the pain, no matter how minor, someone has inflicted back to the victim, usually either severely traumatizing them, or sometimes even outright burning out their soul. It only works if the person on the other end has a soul to begin with, though. A particularly notable instance of this was in the 1994 Fantastic Four cartoon, where he shows up out of nowhere, uses Penance Stare on Galactus, and leaves just as quickly as he came.
Feel the torment of a billion extinguished souls. Experience the pain of eternal guilt.
Though Ghost Rider only made his playable debut in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, he does have some light history with the series. He was one of the captured heroes in Apocalypse's stage in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, and he was a character directly considered for the vanilla release of Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but was decided against because the development team, at least initially, weren't sure how to implement his bike and didn't know how they'd go about implementing him without it. He did make it to Dante's ending in vanilla Marvel 3 at least. Well, just like with Phoenix Wright, Capcom and Aiding locked the fuck in, because just mere months later, in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Ghost Rider was revealed being one of the more prominent characters in the game's marketing. It should be noted that Ghost Rider's design in this game is taken from his design from the mid-2000s onwards, which is notable in that it takes more from Danny Ketch's Ghost Rider than Johnny's. This is easy to overlook if you're not a Ghost Rider fan, but the chain and the spiked biker outfit actually originate from Danny's Ghost Rider design and was retroactively applied to Johnny's in the mid-2000s after he became the main Ghost Rider once again. That said, the one in Marvel 3 is pretty firmly established to be Johnny Blaze. Ghost Rider is personally one of my favorite comic book characters, almost solely on the premise. The spirit of vengeance manifests itself as a flaming skull and rides an equally flaming motorcycle protecting the innocent. Hell yeah, sign me up. Ghost Rider is voiced in this game by Richard Grieco, perhaps best known for playing Booker in 21 Jump Street and its spin-offs, though he's also done animated voiceover roles like Tony Draken in Gargoyles. What's particularly notable about Grieco is that he also played Ghost Rider in the aforementioned 1990s Fantastic Four cartoon, as well as the Incredible Hulk cartoon in that same time frame, appearing in one episode each. Despite only having a combined 2 episodes of television ever as Ghost Rider, Capcom went out of their way to cast him for Marvel 3, and not only does it work, it's one of the best voice performances in the entire game. In my eyes, this man is Ghost Rider. He literally sounds perfect. All that said, let's get into his initial appearance in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Before we start, I do want to note that Ghost Rider has not only some of the most interactions with the cast, but some of the hardest lines in the game. In fact, I'm actually going to showcase them now instead of after the moveset like I usually do, because they're really that damn good.
The gods must answer for their sins. It's do or die. The sun does not rise in hell, goddess. This will prepare you for what you face now.
Let's get this over with.
Leave the demon fighting to the experts, fool. Our flames will be extinguished this day. Never again will you defy my influence, Blade.
And now I think it's time I visit that twin sister of yours. My outspoken power, but instead, find death.
Could defeat you.
Too often you invoke demons in your spells, Mage. It stops now. Your wiles won't work on me, succubus.
So, like what you see?
Not so amusing now, is it? Do you have any idea how many lawyers are in hell?
I won't lose. Not to the likes of you.
So I have this contract with Mephisto when you look at it. I'm your destruction.
We once allied our forces as allies, Demon Spawn. Today, we meet in
I
battle.
can't handle Loki. I will. I eat demons like Windows for breakfast.
Be gentle, will you?
Your bite can use a nice dose of hellfire, Trish. You're playing the fire boy, but not the hellfire.
You judge me?
You make deals with the devil, sometimes. Judgment is upon you, scum. Who wants to die first? There is but one fate for the guilty. Darkness in your soul disgusts me.
I don't have time for interferences.
Hell is calling, Albert.
Just some absolute S-tier shit talking from this guy. Marvel 3's unique interactions can be a little hit or miss, but they did a fantastic job with Ghost Rider here. I do want to bring attention to his victory dialogue with Dr. Doom though. Pretty non-specific sounding, right? Well, and I do want to stress that this is just a theory and not in any way confirmed, but I'm of the opinion that this victory quote might be bugged and was originally intended to be a generic one, while the one intended for Doom was mistakenly made generic. Ghost Rider has this generic victory quote, and as much of a trash talker as Ghost Rider is, even a your mom insult seems kinda weird to place here. But Dr. Doom is very specifically the one character on the roster whose mother does reside in hell, and Ghost Rider is one of the few characters that would know that, given that she invoked Mephisto herself. If I'm right about this, it wouldn't even be the only example of a bugged win quote in the game. Deadpool's win quote for Amaterasu is similarly mistakenly used against Spencer instead. Unless Spencer makes it a habit to shit on people's lawns, I don't know how he gets down. Ghost Rider's a ground-based zoner, which sounds terrible in a fast-paced game like Marvel 3, but he actually covers a pretty unique niche here. He has fantastic range on his heavy and special button normals. He has a really fast, far-reaching snapback, arguably the best one in the game. He has overall useful assists and good DHCs that make him a great team player. But unfortunately, he's liable to get smoked pretty easily by other zoners in the game. Ironically, for a character known for their wheels, Ghost Rider's mobility kinda sucks. And his damage is pretty low overall, making him a character very dependent on resets for damage. You want to play a very grounded game with Ghost Rider since he's kind of not great in the air outside of that amazing jump S. For great Ghost Rider play, I highly recommend looking up match footage from players like Sacktop and Jacoman. Ghost Rider also has one of my favorite themes in the game, an electric guitar led theme that just sounds like Raging Hellfire. It's one of those themes that you can just hear in isolation and immediately attribute it to someone associated with fire. Your Mama's theme is kinda like that too now that I think about it. I actually want to highlight that Jump S real quick because it's arguably Ghost Rider's best space control option, and the only thing you'll ever want to be doing in the air is Ghost Rider. It's safe on block, can be a near instant overhead, and confirms into his ground strings pretty well. Use the chain, love the chain, become one with the chain. Ghost Rider's standing heavy is a 2-part attack, Rage Whip. By pressing heavy twice, Ghost Rider swings his chain about as many times as well, drawing the opponent closer with the second swing. Ghost Rider's chain is a physical manifestation of the hellfire he wields, and has even been known to use the individual links as projectiles. Back in heavy attack sees him use Heartless Spire.
First attack!
This command normal has a decent chunk of utility. Combined with an assist, this can be used for OTG pickups with Ghost Rider, but it's also decent defensively as well. This has a good amount of projectile durability, so it's a good way to shield Ghost Rider for brief moments from frontal zoning assaults. Quarter circle forward in attack is Hellfire.
Great!
Ghost Rider breathes a stream of fire at different angles depending on the attack strength. Light aims low and hits OTG. Medium goes straight forward. And heavy goes upwards diagonally. The light version in particular is notable as yet another OTG pickup, though unlike Heartless Spire, can be comboed into hyper combos. Chain of Rebuttal is done with a Dragon Punch motion and light attack.
Cool!
Ghost Rider launches his chain across the screen, engulfed in flames. This wall bounces and combos cleanly from Rage Whip, allowing him to follow up after. This one's an important part of his combo game. Chain of Punishment is done with a Dragon Punch motion and medium attack.
Yes! Yes!
This one is essentially an anti-air variant of the previous move, but is a little slow to act as a traditional anti-air in most use cases. Dragon Punch and heavy attack is Judgment Strike.
Attack! Yes!
This is largely Ghost Rider's only projectile attack, sending out flaming projectiles that fan out, not unlike, say, Chris's shotgun. This isn't a combo tool and is used primarily for keep away though. It's really hard to see in gameplay, but these aren't just tiny fireballs he shoots out. These are the individual links of the chain he fires, just as I mentioned earlier. Chaos Bringer is done with a quarter circle back and attack. This is an attack that puts the opponent in a brief grab state before bringing them down to the ground. The properties of each grab change depending on the attack button used. Light Punch is a simple snatch and pull that can be followed up with Heartless Spire or Hellfire. Medium is a multi-hit anti-air. And Heavy is a full screen chain slam that leaves the opponent on the extreme opposite side of the screen.
You are guilty.
It leaves him too far away to follow up with anything but one of his hyper combos, which we'll get to in a moment. Speaking of, Ghost Rider's first hyper combo is Hellfire Maelstrom, done with the quarter circle forward and 2 attacks.
Great! Maximum!
Ghost Rider spins his chain, creating an infernal Hellfire Twister that hits multiple times before delivering one final blow. This is most commonly comboed into with the light version of Hellfire after an OTG pickup. Next up is Spirit of Vengeance, done with a Dragon Punch motion and 2 attack buttons.
Great! Maximum! Maximum!
Ghost Rider hops on his bike and rushes forward at the opponent. Depending on what button you press, he has 4 ways to end this attack. Light attack has him charge forward. Medium attack has him do a wheelie that does a single hit. Heavy attack has him turn the bike around. And special has him do a wheelie again, though this one does multiple hits. This is the most damaging version. He can also use this after the heavy version of Chaos Bringer since it gets him across the screen fast enough. Ghost Rider's bike is the Hell Cycle, a Hellfire-powered motorcycle created by Mephisto. Say what you want about him, but the guy's got a great eye for cool shit at the least. The Hell Cycle acts as an extension of the Ghost Rider as well, with Ghost Rider even being able to command it with a single thought. It can reach blazingly fast speeds, leaving a trail of fire behind, teleport, cross water, and even fly in some instances. When Danny became Ghost Rider, he had a separate bike of his own that worked similarly to the Hell Cycle. Johnny, who was retired but had a Hellfire-powered shotgun at the time, shot his personal regular motorcycle with said shotgun, which transformed it into a mystical motorcycle that he could use to keep up with Danny. Ghost Rider's level 3 is of course the Penance Stare, done with a half circle back in 2 attacks.
Have a nice death.
Yes! Level maximum!
Look into my eyes.
Level 2!
This is a command grab. If they're in range, they get hit and afterwards can be comboed again from the crumple state that occurs. This is one of the coolest visual representations I've seen of the Penance Stare in any media. Sure would be a shame if anything happened to it in the next game. Ghost Rider's first assist is Chain of Rebuttal.
Crossover assist!
I'll be
Yes!
His second assist is Heartless Spire.
Crossover assist!
I'll be back.
His third assist is the light version of Hellfire.
Crossover assist! Great!
Here are all of Ghost Rider's colors. Color 2 is essentially the Danny Ketch Ghost Rider color scheme. Can I just say, Ghost Rider has consistently had some of the most stellar cover art of any Marvel character from the 90s onwards. Color 3 is a shout out to issue 348 of the Fantastic Four, where a new Fantastic Four temporarily forms in the wake of the original team's disappearance, though it was mostly a ruse on some Squirrel's part. They didn't get Fantastic Four costumes in the story, so this one kinda works as a neat what if. Color 4 is a shout out to Blackthorn, a Ghost Rider in the Ultimate Universe. He kills the Ultimate Universe versions of Johnny Blaze and Roxanne as part of a sacrifice to summon Mephisto. However, Johnny, in death, also made a deal with Mephisto, his soul for the assured safety of Roxanne. He'd undergo years of training to become the Ultimate Universe version of Ghost Rider and take Blackthorn down, with some help from Ultimate Punisher. Color 5 is a shout out to Noble Kale. Kale is specifically the spirit that bonded to Danny when he first became Ghost Rider, and is largely the reason why Johnny and Danny's family have mystical ties to begin with. Color 6 is a nod to the Phantom Rider, the very first character to bear the Ghost Rider name in a comic book, though as we talked about earlier, his name was later changed to the Phantom Rider once they gave the name to Johnny. His alternate costume is Ghost Rider 2099. Marvel 2099 was a line of books in the late 90s exploring future incarnations of characters like Spider-Man, Hulk, and Doctor Doom. Ghost Rider 2099 is a hacker named Kenshiro Cochran, who more or less dies trying to get himself into cyberspace to escape a rival hacking gang, and comes across a rogue AI calling themselves Ghostworks, wanting him to go out into the real world to be their agent of change. It's a pretty typical cyberpunk fight against the establishment, and that extends to Ghost Rider himself, who's more tech-based here than mystical. Think Freakazoid, but instead of coming out like whatever Freakazoid did, he came out as a cyber-powered Ghost Rider instead. Here's Ghost Rider's ending. Alright, cool. A comic book recommendation where I don't have to get really eccentric with my pick. Ghost Rider is a character with a mostly decent history of comics, but they have a tendency to start off good and either peter out or just devolve into a bunch of convoluted nonsense that never gets resolved. That said, there's some Ghost Rider stuff I can easily recommend, though they're not all Johnny Blaze oriented. Ghost Rider Trail of Tears is an interesting one. It's set during the Civil War. No, not the one with the superheroes beating the shit out of each other, like the actual American Civil War. It is notably not told from the perspective of the Ghost Rider, but instead a regular human. This one's pretty self-contained, but it has some neat art, and it shows that the Ghost Rider legacy goes pretty far back beyond Blaze himself. Danny Ketch's initial stint as Ghost Rider is pretty good as well. As mentioned earlier, Johnny's a supporting character in this, taking a mentorship role, and helps ease Danny into being the new Ghost Rider mantle holder. I'd say read up until about issue 25 or so, it kind of goes off the rails after that. Sidebar, but I'm always a fan of when legacy characters in comic books get explored and have to reckon with what it means to take on the legacy of something bigger than them. It's something that DC in the same time period also did extremely well, with James Robinson's 1994 Starman series being a great example, along with what's probably my single favorite comic book run of all time from any comic book publisher, Mark Waid's legendary run with the Wally West incarnation of The Flash. Speaking of new characters taking up legacy roles, there's Robbie Reyes, who recently took up the Ghost Rider mantle about a decade ago, and he's been in a few stories, most notably being an Avenger, though I'd say his best stories come from his initial 2014 debut run. In the mid-2000s, when Johnny became Ghost Rider again, the book was handled by Daniel Way, and this run is one of the more consistent Ghost Rider runs overall, and I'd say it's a fantastic lead-in to what my recommendation is for this video, a run that directly follows and builds upon Way's setup. It's written by a pretty well-known writer in the medium that's done fantastic work with characters like Thor and Doctor Strange. This video's comic book recommendation is Jason Aaron's 2008 run on Ghost Rider. This run picks up immediately after Daniel Way's run, with the revelation that Johnny's existence as Ghost Rider was the work of a rogue angel, waging a war against heaven, and that the Ghost Rider was now, whether he liked it or not, an angel of vengeance. As it so happens, Johnny doesn't like that, since he's more or less just being used as a pawn in a greater scheme against heaven. So he starts planning revenge the only way he knows how, looking for a way to storm the literal gates of heaven itself so he can face down the angel responsible for all of this, Zadkiel. He ends up in a small town where he catches wind of a man named Lucas, who momentarily died but was brought back by paramedics. For the brief time he was clinically dead though, he had a disturbing experience with heaven, and has been terrified of heaven and angelic imagery ever since. Johnny attempts to get to Lucas to find out what he knows, but as it turns out, the hospital Lucas is at is filled with agents of Zadkiel, and Johnny and Lucas end up being pursued by gun-toting, divine weapon-wielding nurses from heaven. Yeah, you heard that right. Things get even more bizarre though, as agents of Zadkiel start popping up around every corner, putting Ghost Rider out of his element a bit, because now he's fighting heaven-based folk instead of the demons and hellbound beings he's used to. And that's to say nothing of stuff like the highway paved over and haunted by the corpses of a settlement that eventually turned into cannibals. Over the course of the first few issues, we also see a man tailing Johnny, apparently in service of Zadkiel. This man is revealed to be Danny Ketch, and things only get more complicated from there as things drive towards an inevitable showdown between the two of them. Matters only continue to escalate from there in ways people usually have come to expect from Jason Aaron comics at this point. This run also delves into the history of the Ghost Rider lineage as well, so it's a neat way to get some backstory on why Ghost Riders are the way they are. I'll be real here, some of the art might take a bit of getting used to, especially early on in the run, but it's a pretty cool run with some neat action and really cool displays of power here and there. Ghost Rider lore can get pretty complex, but everything you need to know for this run is told to you in the very first page of the book, so you can hit the ground running. Ghost Rider returns to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which was actually kinda moderately surprising, since he's notably one of the few Marvel characters with no notable presence in MCU movies. Ghost Rider also has probably my favorite Marvel theme in the game. It's one of the few Marvel tracks that abandons the orchestral MCU-esque slant in favor of, wouldn't you know it, a theme that actually sounds like it fits the character's personality. Do I think it's as good as his Marvel 3 theme? Nah. This one kinda drones on a bit for my liking, but it's still a decent theme and easily the best one on the Marvel side by a considerable margin. Kinda funny that with the bar for catchy themes in this game being so low it's practically in hell, the character that's unironically straight out of hell actually defies expectations here. Ghost Rider's another returning character that absolutely thrives in Infinite. He's a character that gets a ton of mileage out of Active Switch. He's got some of the best lockdown in the game, especially with his supers. He has a pretty easily grasped game plan himself. Use his normals to not let the other person play, and lockdown super into mix-ups with your partner. His reach makes him an excellent character with regards to sniping out partners for happy birthdays as well. Penance there though, on top of it looking a lot sillier, doesn't get a follow-up after the crumple. If he loses his partner, he's way less effective, more so than other characters. And no disrespect to his new voice actor here, but it's really hard to top Richard Grieco's performance in Marvel 3. Ghost Rider has a new voice actor this time around, being voiced by Fred Tadashura, who's best known for playing the Hulk in just about every cartoon or video game the Hulk's been in for something in the ballpark of 20 years, Marvel 3 and this game included. His voice is a lot more gravelly and demonic sounding, which works, but man, I miss Richard Grieco. That said though, Fred Tadashura is another legend of the voice acting game, and another one we'd be here all day talking about if I were to go down the list of all of his roles. Ghost Rider has a minor role in Infinite Story Mode, being the first person we see trying to track down Jedha, as he can sense the mass disappearance of souls and links into whatever Jedha is planning. Oh, and Morrigan's really into him. Ghost Rider is, from a moveset standpoint, pretty similar to his Marvel 3 incarnation, retaining pretty much all of his moves and getting a few new tricks. Players to keep an eye on for ideal high-level Ghost Rider play include once again Jaco Man and Tekoa. First off, Heartless Spire was changed from a command normal to his standing heavy kick. Rage Whip is pretty similar to its Marvel 3 incarnation, done with heavy punch twice. Shoulder Slam is done by pressing down forward and light punch. This was his crouching medium in Marvel 3. Damnation Whip is done with down and heavy punch in the air. This was his jumping S in Marvel 3, and it still serves largely the same purpose here. Wraith Whip is done with down forward and heavy punch. This was his crouching heavy in Marvel 3. Hellfire is done with a quarter circle forward and kick.
Hellfire! Yes! Hellfire! Yes!
This move is largely the same as in Marvel 3, in that it still hits OTG and can be confirmed into a hyper combo. The light version goes downwards and hits OTG, and the heavy version goes forwards. However, if you hold heavy instead of just tapping it, you'll get a variant that aims upwards, identical to the heavy version from Marvel 3. This version has additional utility in that it wall bounces now. Chain of Rebuttal is done with a quarter circle forward and light punch.
Cool!
Judgment Strike functions similarly to Marvel 3, being done with a quarter circle forward and heavy punch.
Stand still! Cool. Stand still! Yes!
Chaos Bringer is done with a quarter circle back and light punch. This functions similarly to in Marvel 3.
Yes! You can't help me! Good!
Conviction Slam is done with a quarter circle back and heavy punch.
You can't help me! Feel the pain!
This is now its own separately named move instead of just being a variant of Chaos Bringer. Chain of Punishment is done with a down, down, and light punch motion, being moved from a Dragon Punch in Marvel 3.
Good! Be gone! Be gone! Yes!
Hell's Embrace is done with a down, down, and heavy punch motion. This was originally just the medium variant of Chaos Bringer in Marvel 3.
Be gone! Cool! Be gone! Super!
Seventh circle of punishment is done with the quarter circle back in any kick.
Show me your sins. You must be punished.
This is a completely new move for Ghost Rider, and a pretty good one at that. You can mash kick to get more hits, the light version going up to 8 hits and the heavy version going up to 12. There's also additional follow-ups Ghost Rider can perform with either of the punch buttons. First is 7th Circle Whip, done by pressing light punch during 7th Circle punishment.
Great! You must be punished. Is that all? Super!
This one, despite it looking slow, will combo into a wall bounce. Next is 7th Circle Anchor, done by pressing heavy punch during the move.
You must be punished. Super!
This one sends the opponent flying high into the air. Not a bad move to use if you want to active switch your partner in safely. Hellfire Maelstrom is done with the quarter circle forward and 2 punches.
Maximum! Hell awaits!
This move is largely the same as in Marvel 3, but it feels like the hitbox is slightly more generous this time around. That said, its best utility comes from being one of the safest supers to tag your partner in on, due to how much screen space it covers. Spirit of Vengeance is done with the quarter circle forward and 2 kicks.
Maximum! Bloody blaze rise again! Maximum!
Like in Marvel 3, he has follow-ups. Pressing a punch button has him do a U-turn. Pressing kick has him do the multi-hit wheelie from Marvel 3. His level 3 is of course Penance Stare.
Nice. Have a nice day. Face me. Maximum!
So yeah, this move is kind of a downgrade functionally and aesthetically, despite still doing good damage. Functionally speaking, it's been slightly nerfed in that you can't combo the opponent afterwards. They still have a drawn out crumple animation, but they're actually safe during this and can't be hit. Aesthetically, I just don't know what they were going for here. Did they not want to recreate the really neat effect from Marvel 3? Was it a budget limitation? A time limitation? Hell, an Unreal 4 quirk that they couldn't figure out in time? It's just so baffling that they left it like this. Here are Ghost Rider's colors. Color 2 is based off of the Johnny Blaze incarnation of Ghost Rider's original design when he debuted in the 70s. Color 3 is based off of Vengeance, a man Mephisto manipulated into becoming a Ghost Rider in order to fight Johnny. Color 4 is again based on Phantom Rider. His alternate outfit is an original Western Outlaw design, but it seems loosely inspired by Caretaker's design from the 2007 Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movie. Caretaker himself in that movie is kind of a combination of 2 characters from the comic books. Caretaker, an ally who debuted during Danny Ketch's time as Ghost Rider in the 90s, and Carter Slade, who was the original Ghost Rider before being changed to Phantom Rider. In the movie, he occupies similar roles, being both an ally to Johnny as well as being the original Ghost Rider, and specifically the first one to rebel against Hell. It should be noted that in the video game adaptation of the first Ghost Rider movie, Caretaker was voiced by Fred Tadashura, who of course is voicing Ghost Rider here.
One of our flames will be extinguished this day. Won't be mine. No matter what realm I occupy, I will rule. There are many souls in Hell, Jedi. Allow me to introduce you.
Do you understand the fate of fools who betray the truth?
I'm happy to oblige.
Surrender all hope. Your ruler has arrived.
I'll drag you to Hell, villain, kicking and screaming.
I'm not as merciful as the demons you've come across.
Pleasure and pain, we deliver both.
Arrived at target site, preparing for battle.
2 sinners in one body. I've hit the jackpot.
Those who control the stones control the universe.
I'll teach you the meaning of purification. Do you think you can defeat us?
Ready!
You know, for a character that initially missed out on being in the series because the developers didn't know how to make him fit, Ghost Rider slots into the series pretty well. I mean, he's a dude riding a flaming motorcycle that fights demons all day with hellfire and a chain with the power of hell. Tell me that wouldn't make for a fighting game character that goes hard. I'm thankful for both of his appearances in the Marvel vs. games, and if a new one ever releases, he's someone I could see potentially coming back. Just please get Pen and Stare right next time, hypothetical developers. Hopefully, this video's given you a better understanding and appreciation of the character in either Marvel vs. Capcom or the comics themselves. All that said, that's going to do it for this video. As always, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.